It wasn't the cold that scared me. It was what I felt when she touched my wrist. I don't even remember her face at first, just the warmth of her fingers, cool against my skin, and how the world suddenly felt quieter, like the sound in a movie when the chaos drops out, and you only hear a heartbeat. Mine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, a week before I met her, when I still believed a cold was just a cold and not some strange cosmic shove toward the most confusing, painful, and beautiful chapter of my life. My name's Grant Lawson. 41 years old. CEO of a private equity firm in Manhattan. Net worth somewhere north of 30 million, depending on the market. I live alone in a glass box of a penthouse in Tribeca, the kind of place that impresses other rich people but doesn't exactly feel like home. I'm not married. Never found the time. I've dated models, lawyers, a news anchor, and even a French art curator once. They were all beautiful. Polished. Ambitious. Like me. But if I'm honest, I didn't feel much for any of them, not the way I felt lying in that hospital bed on a Tuesday night, staring at the ceiling tiles, waiting for her to come back. That week had started like any other. 12-hour workdays. 2 client meetings in D.C. on Monday. Red-eye back to New York. My throat started to itch on the plane. Nothing serious. I figured it was dry cabin air or one too many scotches at the lounge. By Wednesday, I had a fever of 102 and could barely lift my head off the pillow. But even then, I didn't plan to go to the hospital. I'm not the type who goes in for checkups or waits in urgent care. I have concierge doctors on speed dial. People come to me. That's how it's always been. Only this time, my assistant, Natalie, who's been with me 6 years and acts more like my overpaid babysitter than an employee, made the call without asking. Next thing I know, I'm being wheeled into Mount Sinai by some bored EMT, coughing like a dying engine, and mumbling about missing a board meeting. You don't need a board meeting, Natalie had said sharply. You need a doctor. And possibly an exorcist. They ran a bunch of tests. Nothing serious, just a nasty viral infection. I thought they'd send me home with some meds and fluids. But the ER doctor, a tight-lipped guy with the bedside manner of a parking meter, insisted on admitting me for observation. Observation. I croaked. Do I look 80 to you? He didn't laugh. Neither did Natalie. So I gave in. I got a private room with a decent view of the East River, though I was too exhausted to enjoy it. That first day passed in a haze, nurses coming and going, blood draws, 4 bags, the occasional beep of machines. Then night fell. And she walked in. She wasn't what I expected. Not like the other nurses, who were efficient and polite and always seemed slightly stressed. She moved differently. Slower. Like she wasn't rushing anywhere, like time moved at her pace. I remember her voice before I remembered her face. Soft. Kind. Slightly southern, like Carolina, maybe. Just enough drawl to make you listen a little longer. Mr. Lawson. I turned my head, and there she was, standing in the doorway with a clipboard and a subtle smile. She wasn't beautiful in the way women at charity galas are beautiful. No designer dress, no flawless makeup, no stilettos that cost more than a mortgage. She wore plain navy scrubs, white sneakers, and a messy bun that looked like it had survived a long shift. But her eyes, God, her eyes, were the kind you don't forget. Dark brown. Calm. But behind them, something flickered. Like she saw things most people didn't. I'm Emma. I'll be your night nurse. Emma. Simple name. Honest. She walked over to my bed and checked the 4-line. Her hands brushed my arm, and I tensed. Not from pain. From something else. You're running hot, she said gently, pressing a thermometer to my forehead. Try to rest. The worst should pass in the next 24 hours. I've got work, I muttered. Calls. Meetings. Emma chuckled. Not tonight, you don't. Tonight, your job is to sleep and not die on my shift. Think you can handle that, Mr. Lawson? I blinked at her. For a moment, I forgot I was sick. Call me Grant. She nodded. All right, Grant. She fluffed my pillow, adjusted the light, and dimmed the monitor so I could sleep. Before leaving, she turned and said something that stuck with me longer than it should have. "You know, even rich guys get lonely in hospitals." Then she walked out. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of the fever, though it hadn't broken yet. I kept thinking about her. About what she said. Even rich guys get lonely. She didn't say it with pity. She said it like a fact. Like she knew it from experience. And the worst part was, she was right. I was lonely. Had been for years. But I'd gotten so good at pretending I wasn't that I started believing my own performance. The private chef. The weekend trips. The dinner parties full of people who only liked me as long as the wine kept flowing. But in that sterile hospital room, with the 4 in my arm and no one waiting for me at home, I felt it. All of it. And her voice, that warm, grounded voice, kept echoing in my head. Emma came back around 3 a.m. I'd been half awake, staring at the city lights through the window, when I heard the soft squeak of her sneakers. "You okay?" she asked, checking the monitor. "Couldn't sleep." "Side effect of money and a high fever," she said with a smirk. I studied her face in the low light. She had faint freckles across her nose. Tired eyes, but not sad. No ring on her finger. "Is this your regular shift?" I asked. She hesitated. "I cover nights when they need me." "Extra cash." "What do you do during the day?" Emma looked up. For a second, I thought she might ignore the question. But then she answered. "I take care of my dad." I waited for more, but she didn't elaborate. Something about the way she said it, quiet, but not defeated, made me want to know everything. Before I could ask, her pager went off. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "Another room's calling. I'll be back to check on you in a bit." "Emma," I said before she turned to leave. "Yeah. Thanks. For not treating me like a paycheck." She looked surprised. Then smiled, a real smile, not the kind you give strangers. "You're welcome, Grant." She didn't come back the rest of the night. The next morning, a different nurse took her place. A guy named Brian who was friendly but forgettable. I asked where Emma went. He just shrugged. Said she'd finished her shift. I spent the day restless, waiting for her to return. That night, she didn't. Or the next. By day 3, I was better. Fever gone. Discharge papers ready. Natalie came to pick me up. Still no Emma. As we walked out of the hospital, I couldn't help but ask the receptionist if she was working again soon. "Emma," the receptionist said, flipping through a schedule. "Emma Thompson. HM, doesn't look like she's on the calendar next week. Might be switching units again." Switching units? That didn't make sense. Why did it feel like she had disappeared? And why did I care so damn much? It's strange, isn't it? How a brief moment, barely an hour in the middle of a sleepless night, can linger in your mind longer than some entire relationships. That's what happened with Emma. I was discharged that Friday afternoon. Natalie drove me back to my place, dropped me off like she always did, efficient, polite, slightly overbearing, and made me promise to rest. She even stocked my fridge and threatened to change the Wi-Fi password if I checked my emails before Monday. But none of that mattered. Because the moment I stepped into my penthouse, that wide, glass and steel expanse that usually made me feel like I'd earned something, I felt hollow. Like I'd just walked out of something important. Like I'd left something behind. Someone. I spent the next few days pretending I wasn't looking for her. I told myself it was nothing. Just fever dreams and late-night loneliness. A harmless crush on a kind nurse. Happens all the time, right? But deep down, I knew better. Emma hadn't just been kind, she'd been real. Raw. Different. She didn't flirt or flatter. She didn't even seem impressed by me, which in my world was rare enough to be considered a miracle. And she left before I could ask anything real. So, by Sunday night, after 3 days of pacing around my penthouse and imagining different ways to accidentally end up back at Mount Sinai, I did the one thing I never do, I acted without a plan. I got in my car, drove back to the hospital, and walked straight to the nurse's station on the third floor like I had every right to be there. "Can I help you, sir?" The nurse behind the desk was young, early 20s, distracted by a phone buzzing in her scrubs. "I'm looking for someone," I said. "Emma Thompson. She was working night shift earlier this week." "I was a patient here, Grant Lawson." Her expression shifted from polite to suspicious. "Why are you looking for her?" I hesitated. What was I supposed to say? "Because I can't stop thinking about her, and I think she felt it too, and I just need to see her again before this becomes another what if that keeps me awake at night." Instead, I said, I just wanted to thank her in person. She was kind to me. The nurse glanced at the schedule. "She's not on nights anymore. Switched to float rotation last week. Covers multiple units. She's not here tonight. Do you know where she might be?" "No, sorry." I lingered. She was already looking back at her phone. That was it. A dead end. I turned to leave, but something made me stop. A thought. A memory. Her last name. Thompson. She never mentioned where she lived. But she had said one thing. "I take care of my dad." That line had stuck with me, more than I wanted to admit. Back in the car, I stared at my phone. Normally, I had a guy for things like this. Discreet investigations. Background checks. But this wasn't business. This was personal. I searched, Emma Thompson Mount Sinai nurse, but the results were useless. Too many Thompsons. No photos. No way to know if any of them were her. Still, I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. So I did what I knew how to do, I threw money at the problem. I called a private investigator I'd used before, a quiet guy named Walker. Used to work in cybersecurity. Now freelanced for people like me who needed things found or buried. Need a name traced, I told him. Emma Thompson. Nurse. Worked at Mount Sinai this past week. Probably lives within commuting distance. Might care for a relative, father, I think. Can you find her? Walker didn't ask why. He just said, "Give me 2 days." While I waited, I tried to go back to my old routine. But it didn't work. The boardroom felt smaller. The meetings felt pointless. Even the women at the Friday night charity event, all champagne laughter and glossy red lips, felt like cardboard cutouts. I kept replaying that night in the hospital. The way she looked at me, not with awe or admiration, but with honesty. Like I wasn't a man with a brand, but just a man. Sick. Tired. Alone. And something else gnawed at me. Why had she disappeared? Why not say goodbye? Why did she seem so guarded, even when she smiled? Walker called Tuesday morning. "I found her," he said, just like that. I stood up from my desk, heart thudding. "Where?" "She lives in Queens. Small walk-up apartment in Astoria. Her father's name is Michael Thompson. Retired firefighter. Early-stage Parkinson's. She's his primary caregiver. Registered nurse since 2014. Floats between hospitals, Mount Sinai, New York Presbyterian, sometimes does in-home care on weekends." I gripped the edge of the desk. He kept going. Not married. No kids. No criminal record. Nothing shady. Pretty clean. "Send me the address." "You want surveillance?" "No," I said. "I just want to talk to her." That night, I drove out to Astoria. No driver. No pretense. Just me. The neighborhood was modest. Brick buildings. Chain link fences. Corner bodegas and old trees pushing up sidewalks. Real life. The kind of place I hadn't been in years. Her building was 3 stories high. Faded red brick. Metal mailboxes by the door. I stood outside for a long time, wondering what the hell I was doing. What if she didn't want to see me? What if I was just another rich guy mistaking attention for affection? But then I remembered her eyes. How steady they were. How they saw right through my layers. And I rang the buzzer. "Hello. Her voice crackled through the intercom. "It's Grant," I said. "From the hospital. You took care of me. I know this is unexpected, but I just needed to see you." There was a pause. Then a buzz. The door unlocked. She was waiting at the top of the stairs, arms crossed over her chest, wearing an oversized sweater and faded jeans. No makeup. Hair loose this time. And still, stunning. Not because she was glamorous, but because she was her. "Hi," I said, breathless. "I didn't know how else to find you." "I figured it was you," she said quietly. "Most men don't hire private investigators just to say thank you." I winced. "That obvious?" She didn't smile. "Not this time." "What do you want, Grant?" I hesitated. "A conversation. That's all. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." She studied me for a long moment. I could see the wall she was building, brick by brick. "Come in," she said finally. "But you only get 10 minutes. Her apartment was small but clean. Neatly kept. Smelled faintly of lavender and something home-cooked. There were photos on the wall, her and an older man in uniform, a dog, what looked like her graduation. She motioned for me to sit, but didn't join me. Just stood across the room with her arms crossed. "Why did you leave without saying goodbye?" I asked. Emma looked down. "Because it wasn't real. You were a patient. I was a nurse. It happens. People feel things. It's chemical. Fleeting. It didn't feel fleeting to me." She finally looked up. Her eyes had that same flicker I remembered. "Grant. You're a billionaire. I'm a nurse who lives with her sick dad. We don't belong in the same world." Maybe not. But that didn't stop something from happening between us. Or did I imagine it? She looked away, jaw tightening. Before she could answer, a voice called from the next room. Everything okay?" An older man's voice. Raspy. Emma turned her head. "Yeah, Dad. Just a friend." Friend. That word stung more than it should have. She looked back at me. "You should go." But something told me this wasn't the end. Not even close. I should have walked away that night. I should have thanked her for the tea I never drank, for the 10 minutes she gave me, and left quietly with my pride still intact. But I didn't. Because when Emma closed the door behind me, I stood there in the stairwell like some idiot romantic from a bad movie, wondering what it would take to make her see that I wasn't there for a thrill. I wasn't chasing a fantasy. I was chasing her. The next day at work, I was useless. I sat through meetings but couldn't remember a word anyone said. My mind kept replaying the look in her eyes, guarded, sad, but not indifferent. No, not indifferent. She felt something. I was sure of it. I kept asking myself, why did she build that wall so fast? And then I remembered her father's voice. Everything okay?" He was part of the reason, I could feel it. She'd sacrificed everything for him, time, sleep, probably even love. She wasn't cold. She was tired. Protective. Wary of people who walked into her life with charm and walked out with destruction. I couldn't blame her. But I couldn't forget her either. I waited a few days. Then, on Saturday morning, I drove back to Astoria. No suit this time. No agenda. Just a bag of groceries in the passenger seat and the stupid kind of hope that makes grown men act like teenagers. Her building looked the same, brick, peeling paint, and metal steps that moaned under my feet. I buzzed. No answer. I tried again. Finally, I heard the intercom. "Yes. It's Grant." "I brought eggs," I said, holding up the grocery bag like she could see it. A pause. A buzz. The door unlocked. She opened her apartment door with a cautious expression. "You brought groceries." "I brought breakfast," I corrected, lifting the bag. "And I make a mean omelet. Unless that violates some deeply rooted nurse boundary." Her lips twitched. "You're persistent. You know that." I'm a venture capitalist. Persistence is literally my personality. She rolled her eyes, but stepped aside. If you poison my father, I will kill you with a spoon. Fair. That morning was the first time we talked like two people who might maybe let their guards down. I cooked in her tiny kitchen while she sat at the table in sweats and socks, hair tied up, eyes watching me like she still wasn't sure if this was real. Her dad, Michael, came out halfway through. Gray hair, thick mustache, tremors in his hands. He eyed me warily at first, like every protective father should. But the moment I handed him a plate, he smiled. This city boy can cook, he said with a nod. I told him if he poisoned you, I'd bury him in the backyard, Emma added casually. Michael chuckled. You should have let me eat first before telling him that. After breakfast, I helped her wash dishes. I offered to take her out, just the two of us, something simple. Coffee, a walk. But she shook her head. I don't go out much. Can't leave him for long. You have no help. Can't afford much. The part-time nurse comes twice a week. The rest is on me. She said it like it was just a fact. No bitterness. No drama. Just her reality. And it hit me, this woman was carrying the weight of someone else's entire life, quietly, without complaint. That's when I stopped seeing her as just the woman from the hospital. And started seeing her as the woman I didn't know how to walk away from. Over the next few weeks, I kept showing up. Sometimes with groceries. Sometimes with books. Once with a Netflix login and a bottle of wine, which she didn't drink but pretended to sip for my sake. She didn't always let me in. Sometimes I sat on the steps and talked to her through the buzzer. Other times we sat in silence, just breathing the same air and watching her father nap in the living room. It was slow. Awkward at times. But something was growing. Until the night it cracked. It started small. We were sitting on her tiny couch. Her dad had just gone to bed. The lights were low. I handed her a blanket and she wrapped it around herself like armor. I don't get you, she said suddenly. What do you mean? You could be anywhere tonight. With anyone. Why here? I looked at her. Because I feel something here that I haven't felt in a long time. She didn't speak. So I kept going. I've spent years building a life most people only dream about. Private jets. VIP tables. 7-figure deals before breakfast. But I've never had what I found in your living room. Peace. Honesty. You. That wall in her eyes, it flickered. Then came the twist. You don't know everything, she said softly. I leaned forward. Tell me. I was married once, she said. Briefly. It ended badly. I waited. He was a nurse too. We met during residency. Got married fast. Thought we were this power couple saving lives. Then my mom died, and my dad's diagnosis came a few months later. Everything fell apart. She looked at the floor. He said I wasn't fun anymore. That I was drowning in other people's problems. He cheated. Left. I stayed. Someone had to. I clenched my fists. I'm sorry, I said. She shrugged, but her voice cracked. I'm not telling you for pity. I want you to know what you're walking into. I'm not scared of baggage, I said. You should be, she whispered. And then, for the first time, she let me hold her. Her head on my chest. Her breathing shallow. Her guard, just for one moment, lowered. But real life isn't a straight line. 2 days later, she disappeared again. No response to my texts. No answer when I buzzed. I drove by 3 times in 1 week. Lights off. Mailbox full. No sign of her. I started to worry. Really worry. Finally, I called the hospital. The woman who answered was terse. Emma Thompson is on leave. Leave? What kind of leave? I'm sorry. We can't release personal information. That night, I sat in my car staring at her window, stomach in knots. And then, finally, she appeared. She stepped out of a black rideshare with a man I'd never seen before. Tall. Clean-shaven. Dressed like a doctor. Holding her hand. She didn't see me. But I saw everything. The way he touched her back gently. The way she smiled, not at him, but toward him, familiar, worn in, almost like muscle memory. And that's when the cold feeling crept into my chest. Because whatever was happening between us, I wasn't the only one in it anymore. I sat in my car that night, engine running, hands clenched around the steering wheel like they were the only thing keeping me grounded. Emma. Smiling. Holding another man's hand. My heart sank into a place I hadn't felt since I was a teenager, jealous, foolish, humiliated. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did. And just didn't care. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself 100 different stories. Maybe it was her brother. Or a cousin. Maybe she just needed someone to lean on. But no. The way they moved together, quiet, intimate, there was history between them. Shared pain. Familiarity. And that smile. It wasn't the kind of smile you give someone new. It was the kind you give someone you once knew too well. The next morning, I tried to work. I opened my laptop, answered 2 emails, then shut it again. I couldn't focus. Couldn't think. I felt ridiculous. This woman owed me nothing. We weren't together. There had been no promises, no declarations. But damn it, I felt something. And now I couldn't tell if any of it was real. That afternoon, I drove back to her apartment. I didn't plan to. I told myself I wouldn't. But there I was, parked across the street like some desperate fool, watching her window. Around 3, she stepped out. Alone. Hair tied back. Scrubs. She didn't look happy. Not sad, either. Just distant. Focused. I got out of the car and called her name. Emma. She turned slowly. Her face didn't light up. No smile. Just a long, tired look like she'd been expecting this moment. Grant. I need to talk to you. She sighed. I'm on my way to my shift. I don't have time. Then tell me now. Who was he? That stopped her. Her eyes narrowed. You followed me? No, I said quickly. I was here the other night. I saw you get out of a car with him. She looked away. That's none of your business. It is my business, I said, voice rising. You let me into your life. Your father's life. We shared something. And then you disappear, and now you're with someone else. She looked at me like I was a stranger. His name is Adam. He's my ex-husband. The air around me dropped 10 degrees. The one who cheated. Yes, she said, voice tight. The same. You took him back. Her jaw clenched. No. I didn't take him back. He showed up. Out of nowhere. Said he's sober now. That he wants to help take care of my dad. That he's sorry for everything. And I. She looked down. I didn't know what to do. So you let him hold your hand? I asked bitterly. Her eyes flashed. Don't you dare judge me, Grant. You don't know what it's like to carry all this on your own. Day after day. Year after year. No breaks. No help. No escape. I offered to help, I shot back. I would have done anything. You don't get it, she snapped. You think you would have helped. But eventually, you would have left too. Like everyone else. That's what people do when things get hard. They leave. I stepped back. Her words hit harder than I expected. And I realized something, this wasn't about Adam. Or me. This was about fear. She'd been left too many times. Cheated on. Forgotten. Buried under the weight of someone else's life. And now that the someone, was back, and she didn't know if it was a trap or salvation. I'm not him, I said quietly. She didn't answer. I won't leave, Emma. Not unless you make me. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. But they didn't fall. "I have to go," she said. And she walked away. Days passed. I didn't text. She didn't call. I tried to stay busy. Tried to bury myself in spreadsheets, investor calls, charity board meetings. But my mind kept drifting. Was she with him now? Was he back in her bed? Her life? It drove me insane not knowing. So I called Walker again. "Don't follow her," I said. "Just tell me if he's still around." 2 days later, I had my answer. Adam had been spending nights at the apartment. Not every night, but more than one. No overnight bags. No signs he was officially back. But he was there. Floating in and out of her world like a ghost from the past. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to walk into that apartment and drag him out by the collar and tell him to stay gone. But I didn't. Instead, I waited. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about me versus him. It was about her. She had to choose. And I wasn't going to make it easy for her by giving up. A week later, she called me. Her voice was calm. Tired. "Can you meet me?" she asked. "Just for coffee." I said yes, of course. We met at a little corner cafe in Astoria. She looked worn. Pale. Like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't order anything. Just sat across from me, fingers curled around a chipped mug. "I didn't bring him back," she said quietly. "I let him stay a few nights because I wanted to believe he could change." I nodded. "Did he?" She looked at me. "No." I waited. She took a breath. "The other night, I came home late from my shift. My dad had fallen. Adam was there, drunk. Didn't even notice. Just asleep on the couch like nothing had happened." She blinked. "I drove him to a hotel and left him there. Told him not to come back." I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," I said. She nodded. "Me too." We sat in silence. And then she said something I'll never forget. "I want to trust you, Grant. I really do. But I don't know how. Every time I let someone in, I lose something." I squeezed her hand. "Then let me help you carry it. You don't have to do it alone anymore." She looked up. Eyes glossy. Vulnerable. "I'm scared." "I know," I said. "Me too." That night, for the first time, she let me stay. We didn't kiss. We didn't sleep together. We just lay on the couch, shoulder to shoulder, watching the light flicker across the ceiling. And for the first time in a long time, she fell asleep without flinching. And I stayed. I thought things were finally starting to make sense. Emma had opened the door, just a crack, and let me step inside the fortress she'd built around her heart. For once, there were no walls between us. No ex-husband hovering in the shadows. Just her and me. Two people sitting in the quiet, figuring out what love looks like after you've lost faith in it. But I should have known peace doesn't last. Not in stories like this. We started spending more time together after that night. Slowly, carefully. I helped with groceries, installed a second lock on the front door, fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom she'd been too tired to deal with. Sometimes, I'd sit with her father while she worked the late shift. Michael and I would talk about baseball, old jazz records, or the small fishing town in Maine where he'd grown up. He told me once, "You make her softer." That's rare. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and looked away. She was softer. Still guarded, still cautious. But her eyes didn't scan the room every 5 seconds like she was waiting for something to go wrong. For the first time, Emma let herself laugh. Real, unfiltered laughter. The kind that lit up her whole face and made me forget the noise of my own life. And for a while, I really believed this might work. Until the night it all changed. It was a Friday. Cold. Rain slashing sideways across the streets of Queens. Emma had just finished a double shift. I picked her up from the hospital. She leaned her head on the window the whole ride, her eyes closing halfway through the silence. When we got to her place, she didn't even turn on the lights. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and sank into the couch like a woman who didn't have the strength to carry the world anymore. I made her tea. She fell asleep holding the cup. I took it from her gently and covered her with a blanket. Michael had already gone to bed. The apartment was dark and still. The kind of still that makes you feel like the world has finally exhaled. Then came the knock. A hard, deliberate knock. 3 times. I froze. It was nearly midnight. Emma stirred on the couch but didn't wake. I stepped to the door and looked through the peephole. And just like that, whatever quiet I'd found evaporated. It was Adam. Soaked. Swaying slightly. Holding a bottle of something I couldn't see. His face was pale, his jaw clenched tight. I opened the door halfway. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked. He tried to smile. It didn't land. "Thought I'd check in. See how she's doing." "She doesn't want to see you." "She's my wife." "No, she's not. Not anymore. And even if she was, you gave up the right to just show up like this." He laughed. Bitter, ugly. "So this is it, huh? You waltz into her life with your money and your perfect timing and suddenly I'm the villain. You were the villain long before I showed up." He stepped forward, but I didn't flinch. "She'll come around," he said. "She always does. You don't know her like I do." "You're right," I said calmly. "I know the version of her that didn't exist when she was with you. The one who's trying to heal from what you did." Adam's expression cracked. For a second, just a second, I saw something like shame. Then the anger came back. "She's going to need someone when her dad goes. You think you're that guy?" I didn't answer. He wasn't trying to make a point. He was trying to provoke me. "Go home," I said. "Don't come back." And then, her voice. "Adam." Emma stood in the hallway, wrapped in the blanket, face pale and unreadable. Adam turned, his voice suddenly softer. "Hey, Em. I just wanted to talk." "No," she said, quiet but firm. "You're drunk." "I'm not," he insisted. "I just needed to see you. I miss you." She looked at him for a long time. And I watched her make the decision. "You need to leave," she said. "Please." "But." She stepped closer. "If you ever cared about me, Adam, go." He didn't argue. Not this time. He stood there, wet and shaking, and for a moment I saw the wreckage of a man who'd burned every bridge he ever built. Then he turned. Walked down the stairs. And vanished into the night. After the door closed, Emma didn't speak. She just walked back to the couch, sat down, and stared at the floor. I sat beside her, not touching her. Not rushing her. She finally whispered, "He always comes back. When things feel good again, he just shows up. Like he senses it. And I'm tired, Grant. I'm so tired of being afraid that the moment I start to feel okay, someone will punish me for it." I reached out and took her hand. "Then let's not let him win." She looked at me. "I don't want to be someone's charity case. Or someone's escape." "You're neither," I said. "You're the woman I chose. The one I think about when I wake up. The one I'd walk away from everything for, if she asked." She didn't cry. But her voice cracked when she said, "Don't promise things you can't keep." So I said nothing. Just stayed there. With her. In the quiet. The next day, she asked me something I didn't expect. "Would you come with me to the support group?" "What kind of group?" I asked. "Caregivers. People who take care of sick family members. It's once a month." "I usually don't go, but I think I should." "Of course," I said. That night, we sat in a circle of strangers. Women in their 40s, men in their 60s, one teenager with dark circles under his eyes. They told stories. Raw, painful, beautiful. And Emma, she spoke. She said, "I've been carrying my father's illness like it was mine. Like I had to suffer to prove I loved him. But I think I forgot that I still have a life, too. Or I'm supposed to. And then she looked at me. Right in front of everyone. And someone reminded me of that. When we left, she squeezed my hand. Tightly. And whispered, "Don't go anywhere." "I'm not going anywhere," I told her. But life has a way of testing promises. And within days, I'd face one I wasn't ready for. Because love doesn't just demand presence. Sometimes, it demands sacrifice. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of cold, bright day where the sunlight fools you into thinking the world is safe. I'd started to believe that maybe Emma and I were going to make it. We'd found a rhythm, not perfect, but real. I was spending most nights at her place, helping with Michael when she was at the hospital. We'd gotten used to eating dinner late, watching quiet documentaries on the couch, speaking without words. We weren't talking about love yet. Not directly. But it was there, unspoken, like a current under the surface. Until the phone call came. And everything cracked. Emma answered it in the kitchen, while I was folding laundry on the couch. I didn't hear what was said. I only heard the silence that followed. A long, dense pause. Then her quiet, "Okay. Thank you." When she came back into the living room, her hands were shaking. "What is it?" I asked. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She sat down, slowly, and stared at the wall. "It's my dad," she finally whispered. My heart sank. The tests came back. "It's worse than they thought." I moved closer. "How bad?" She looked at me, eyes glassy. "Stage 4. Lung cancer. Metastasized to his liver." The room spun for a moment. "They said a few months, maybe. With treatment. But he's refusing it." I reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't resist. "Why would he refuse treatment?" "Because he's tired," she said. "He's been fighting something or other for so long, diabetes, heart failure, infections. I think he's just done." Her voice broke. "He wants to die at home." The next week moved like a blur of shadows. Emma took time off work. I canceled 2 board meetings, rescheduled a trip to DC, and stayed. She didn't ask me to. I didn't need to be asked. Michael was quieter than usual. Peaceful, almost. Like a man who had finally made peace with the weight he'd carried. One night, I walked past his room and found him writing letters, actual, handwritten letters. His hand was shaking, but his face was calm. "Do you want help?" I asked. "No," he said, without looking up. "These are things that need to be said the old way." And I understood. There are some goodbyes that only make sense in ink. Emma changed after the diagnosis. Not overnight. But gradually. She moved slower. Spoke less. Started drinking tea instead of coffee. She stared out the window longer than usual. I knew she wasn't sleeping. One night, I sat beside her on the couch. She was holding an old photo, her and her dad at Coney Island. She couldn't have been more than 8, her arms wrapped around a teddy bear, both of them laughing. "I hated him once," she said. "When I was a teenager. He missed my graduation because of a blood sugar crash. He couldn't walk me down the aisle because he was in the hospital. I used to think he let me down." She turned the photo over. "But I see it now. He was trying. Every day. Even sick, even tired, he kept showing up." She looked at me. Her eyes were red. "I don't know how to do this without breaking." "You don't have to do it alone," I said. She nodded. But I saw it in her eyes, she still felt like she was alone. Because grief, no matter how many people stand around you, is a solitary weight. That weekend, her aunt arrived from Vermont. Diane. A no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a blunt mouth and a heart of gold. "I'll handle the cooking," she said the moment she stepped inside. "You two handle the loving." She hugged Emma so tightly I thought she might break. It was good to have another adult in the house. Someone who understood the rhythms of caretaking. Emma could finally rest a little. And we needed rest, because the next twist came fast and sharp. It was a Wednesday morning. Emma had taken her dad for a checkup with the hospice nurse. I was on a Zoom call when my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Can you meet me at the hospital? I need you." Just 5 words. But they hit like a punch. I dropped everything and drove across the city like my life depended on it. She met me outside the ER doors, pale and wide-eyed. "What happened?" I asked, breathless. "It's me," she said. "Not him." "What are you talking about?" She looked like she hadn't blinked in an hour. "I fainted in the elevator while helping him out of the car. They ran blood work. The doctor thinks I have an autoimmune disorder. Lupus, maybe. They're not sure yet." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. It felt impossible. Too much. Too cruel. "You," I said, like an idiot. "But you're always healthy." She let out a bitter laugh. "Not anymore, I guess." I wanted to scream. At the universe. At fate. At whatever gods thought it was funny to kick someone when they were already crawling. She sat down on the curb, head in her hands. "I can't do this, Grant. I can't take care of him and fight something else, Anne." Her voice cracked. "And what if I don't even have time left?" I knelt beside her, heart pounding. "You're going to be okay," I said, even though I didn't know if that was true. She looked up at me, something wild and broken in her eyes. "I don't want to die like my mother. In a hospital bed. Alone." "You won't," I said. "I swear, you won't." She fell into my arms then, shaking. And for the first time since we met, I think she actually believed me. We spent the next 2 weeks waiting on results. It was agony. Michael knew something was wrong. He didn't ask. Just held Emma's hand longer than usual when she sat beside him. When the call finally came, we were both in the kitchen. Emma answered on speaker. It wasn't lupus. It was something else. An early-stage autoimmune condition, manageable. Not fatal. She sat down in silence. Then burst into tears. Relief doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes, it looks like collapse. I held her until she stopped shaking. Then kissed her forehead and said, "See. You're not going anywhere." She smiled, weak but real. "But I am," she said softly. "Eventually. We all are." And I knew what she meant. Her dad. Time. The inevitable. But not yet. Not now. That night, I asked her something I hadn't dared before. "Come live with me." She blinked. "What about Dad?" "We'll bring him. I'll hire full-time care. Diane can help. I'll build whatever you need." She looked stunned. "Why would you do that?" "Because I love you," I said. It came out so naturally I didn't even realize I'd said it. But once it was out, I didn't take it back. She didn't say it back. But she whispered, "Okay." And that was enough. We moved everything by the end of the week. My Manhattan penthouse transformed into something warmer. Softer. A hospital bed in the guest room. Photos on the walls. Her plants on the windowsill. Emma moved in like she'd always belonged. And I was no longer just a visitor in her world. I was part of it. But we both knew what was coming next. Because Michael's time was running out. And we were going to have to say goodbye. They say you can't prepare for death, but I think that's only half true. You can prepare. What you can't do is protect yourself from it. You can buy the bed, call the nurses, write the letters, say the things. But nothing stops the hole that opens in your chest when someone you love takes their final breath. Michael passed away on a Thursday morning. The light had just started creeping through the windows. Emma was holding his hand. The days leading up to it were quiet, heavy, almost holy. We knew it was close. His body had started to shut down. He wasn't in pain, the hospice nurse made sure of that, but he was fading, hour by hour. Diane came in from the kitchen every few hours with soup or tea. Sometimes Emma took it. Most times, she didn't. She barely left the bedside. I didn't either. There was nothing to say. Nothing to fix. Just presence. Stillness. Waiting. He drifted in and out. Sometimes lucid, sometimes not. He mistook me for his brother once. Called Emma by her mother's name. But one moment will stay with me forever. It was 2 days before he died. I had gone to the kitchen to grab water, and when I came back, I heard him talking to Emma in a soft, whispery voice. "I was never enough for you," he said. "I know that." She gripped his hand tighter. "Dad." "No, baby, let me say it. I was angry too much. I let the sickness win too often. I made you the adult when you should have been a kid." Emma's shoulders were trembling. "I did the best I could, but I know it wasn't enough. I just want you to live, Em. Don't spend your life in the past like I did. You deserve a beginning, not an ending." Her voice cracked. "You gave me more than you know." They sat there for a long time. And I just stood in the hallway, listening. Because some moments aren't meant to be interrupted. When the end came, it was peaceful. His breathing slowed. And then, it stopped. Emma didn't scream or fall apart. She didn't cry at first. She just rested her head against his shoulder and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. You can rest now." I watched her let go of the men who had raised her. The men who had disappointed her, protected her, shaped her. And I realized in that moment how much strength lived in her bones. Not the flashy kind. Not loud. But the quiet kind that doesn't bend, even when it breaks. The funeral was small. Just family, a few old friends, and some of the nurses from the hospital who'd known Michael when he was stronger. Emma asked me to say a few words. I didn't prepare anything. Just spoke from the heart. "I didn't know Michael long," I said. "But I saw who he was through the way his daughter loved him. Through the way she sat beside him when he was too tired to speak. Through the way she fought for him, again and again. That kind of love only comes from something real." Emma squeezed my hand tightly. And then I added something I hadn't planned. "He once told me I made her softer. But the truth is, she made me softer. She taught me how to stay when things got hard. She taught me that love isn't about fixing things, it's about showing up. And Michael, you raised someone incredible." There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. After the service, we went back to the apartment. Emma went straight to the bedroom and shut the door. I didn't follow. She needed time. Grief is like a tide. You can't stop it. You can only learn to ride the waves. So I waited. An hour later, the door opened. She walked to me in her sweats, no makeup, hair messy, face swollen from crying. And she said, "Come here." I held her for what felt like hours. And then she said, "I want to leave New York." I blinked. What? Not forever. But for now. Just, go somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can breathe. Where? I don't know. A cabin in Vermont. The coast. Someplace with trees. I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, her eyes weren't filled with dread. They were filled with intention. So I said, "Then let's go." We found a little rental cottage in upstate New York, nothing fancy. Just a fireplace, a big wooden deck, and silence. Emma brought her books. I brought my laptop, though I barely opened it. We spent our days walking, cooking together, lying under blankets and watching the wind move through the pines. One night, it snowed for hours. Thick, soft snow that muted the world. She stood outside on the deck in her socks, looking up like a child. And she whispered, "I never thought I'd feel peace again." I wrapped a blanket around her. "You found it," I said. "No," she said, turning to me. "You brought it." And then, finally, she said it. "I love you, Grant." The words hit me harder than I expected. Because I'd waited for them, not desperately, not with pressure, but quietly, hoping. "I love you too," I said. "I think I always have." We stayed in that cabin for a month. Long enough for her to sleep through the night again. Long enough for her to stop flinching when the phone rang. When we returned to the city, things didn't go back to normal because we weren't who we were before. Emma didn't return to the hospital. She started taking classes, one at a time, in counseling and grief therapy. "I want to help people through it," she said. "The way you helped me." As for me, I stepped back from the company. Hired a new CEO. Took an advisory role. And for the first time since my 20s, I stopped defining myself by work. I started writing again, short stories, little essays. Some of them were about her. She didn't know. Not yet. 1 year after Michael's passing, we drove to Maine, the town where he grew up. We found the old dock he used to talk about, still half-rotted but standing. Emma scattered some of his ashes there. Then we sat on the edge of the dock and watched the tide. "He always wanted to come back here," she said. "You brought him home," I replied. She leaned against me and said, "So did you." We never had a wedding. We never needed one. One morning, I placed a ring box on the kitchen counter. Inside was a simple silver band. No diamond. No speech. Just a note that said, "For the rest of your life, if you want it." She put it on. That was enough. So, if you're still listening to this story, here's what I'll leave you with. Love doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it comes in hospital rooms and late-night breakdowns and whispered promises made in the snow. Sometimes, it comes when you're not ready, and saves you anyway. I met Emma because of a cold. A silly little cold. And I almost missed the miracle standing in front of me. So take the call. Go to the appointment. Say the words. Stay when it's hard. Because love, it doesn't knock. It walks in when everything else is falling apart. And if you're lucky, like I was, it stays.